person that's anyways, guys, welcome. We got Gabe Johansen here, one of the top producers, commercial, and all of real estate in the Willamette Valley. Super fortunate to have you on here. So
Thanks for having me, Aaron. It's great to be here.
Yeah, we got some good stuff, but this is producer. I'm just trying to get a huge catalog of some of the big players around here to glean some knowledge or whatever that good whatever that good pixie dust is. So we got some good stuff that we're going to cover on this. But anyways, tell us a little bit about yourself, Gabe. I know you've been in it for quite a while, and would just like to kind of intro with that.
Sure. Yeah. I got to Oregon in 89. My dad bought a car dealership here in Salem, Oregon. So I call Salem home. I got here in my early teen years and did cars for 20 years. So that's why I learned sales and marketing and everything. Did not like the car business very much at many points in my career. And so I had the opportunity to get into real estate in 2011. I took the jump and I had a great mentor who brought me in and taught me a lot. Ended up buying his company in 2016, SMI Real Estate. And then later on down the road, I bought their management company as well, which is SMI Property Management. So I've have both companies today. Our brokerage is about 50 brokers total. We have 30 commercial brokers and 20 residential. We manage about 4,000 residential doors. Wow. And we're in the process of merging with another company out of Portland. So we're moving into the Portland market, and we'll manage about 6,000 doors once we take on that merger, about 200 employees total.
Dang. So has that pivoted and managing? Now you have the property management, and you also are selling these, beautiful apartment complexes, commercial buildings.
Yeah.
And whatnot.
Yeah. I forgot to mention too, we started a debt team, and we also started a fund as well. So we hit real estate from every angle. We really love apartments.
Yeah.
I own apartment buildings. I manage apartment buildings. We broker both, deals and debt, but we do all asset types, and I love real estate. I don't know. Maybe I just really don't want to go back to the car business. I tell people, I just had lunch with somebody and I said, one of my main motivations is to not have to go back to the car business.
Yeah.
I am very thankful that I did it. It was a great education, a lot of good times, and I made good money for what I was doing. But at the end of the day, it was not what I was supposed to be doing. So I'm blessed. I'm happy to be here.
That's one of the cooler stories that I've heard is, Tyler Blythe.
Mm-hmm.
He was trying to get out of the, high, huge power lines, commercial power lines, right? And he hated it. I mean, he hated the job, right? He liked the money, hated the job. And he said, well, I talked to Gabe. He told me to learn how to sell. So, become a car dealer. He did well in that, and then got into real estate. And
he wanted to jump right. He wanted to jump right into real estate. And I said, nah, you got something else you got to do first. And he went off and sold cars. And he said, okay, I did it for a few months. I hate it. I don't want to do it anymore. I said, come back with a couple of salesmen of the month plaques, and then we'll talk. So,
and that just goes to show, you said you had a great mentor. It's paramount for people to have good mentors and to see what it looks like, on the micro schedule of what does your even day look like, and what do you do? How did you start this? Obviously that's changed over the years, but
that's mentorship is critical, and in all facets of my life, both in business and personal. I've always had mentors, and I've always tried to mentor people. And so to me, it's the most enjoyable part of what I do. I love helping people get started. And honestly, I mean, I wouldn't be able to do anything without the people who brought me up. So I really appreciate the folks who took the time to put their knowledge into me. And I feel like it's my duty to pass that on to the next generation for those of you that want to hear it. Not everybody cares about this.
I don't know. I find it fascinating. And ultimately I really like to hear, what was in that, what was that kind of hero story, what changed, what was the catalyst that you found kind of the it factor and what worked, and you found that whatever that script was, or you found, you had the right associate or partner, that helped you really catapult and then just compound wins.
Yeah, I would say, it's funny how you're getting my brain going now, and I'm just thinking back, on where everybody looks at success and all they really see is the success. They just sort of think
Right.
that it came easy and
Yeah.
everybody wants it, but how do you get it? It seems so hard to get, and it is. I sort of look at myself as just a culmination of failures.
Mm.
And so, of the 10 things I've tried to do, I've really been successful at one, but all the failures that I had in the other nine sort of gave me the education to do what I do at what I'm good at. And so I
Yeah.
would just suggest that, in many points in my career, I wanted to throw in the towel, or I wanted to give up, or I wasn't happy. And you just got to keep at it, man. I mean, even today, it's still a grind. And some people don't like the hustle, they don't like the grind. And there are days where I'll look in the mirror and go, what in the heck did I get myself into? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
there are times where it's like, this is a lot,
No. Yeah.
and there are other times where it's just like smooth sailing,
Yeah.
everything's good.
Well, I mean, in a commercial, on a commercial deal, those take a long time to close
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So
Brokers. So I cut my teeth when I came into real estate. I was an apartment broker. I decided I wanted to broker bigger deals. I wanted to do commercial assets, and apartments, for whatever reason, it just sang to me. It made sense.
mhm.
You could get a building where you have a lot of tenants. If one tenant leaves, so be it. You have other tenants that are paying your rent. It felt like a more conservative asset type. Excuse me. And so it's the only asset type I know of, or the only investment really I know of, that the more of it you own, the less risk you have.
Sure.
Whereas most things is just the opposite, right? And so I don't know, for whatever reason, I gravitated towards it. I know a lot of residential brokers who dabble in multifamily. Well, I love watching a new broker come in and do an apartment deal, because it does take like 2, 3 times as long, sometimes longer.
So kind of come off that
Th-
sale high, right?
there are
Meaning,
there are multiple times during the transaction where you're pretty sure it's going to fail, and
right.
oftentimes they do. Much different than a residential rhythm. And when you show up for an inspection, the things that you see on inspection day are quite a bit messier and stinkier than
Yeah.
what you'll see coming through, selling a nice new spec house or something like that. So coming out of cars, I think for me, gave me a little bit of edge, because it's just, you're driving around people's trade-ins and there's dirty diapers in the back seat. And it's just, people are people. And sometimes it's gross, man. Sometimes we're walking around cockroaches or rats or bed bugs or, whatever that happens in an apartment unit. They're not all like that, but oftentimes, you end up just sort of in weird situations with, weird. I've got some pretty amazing inspection stories. I won't tell them right now. But you see some crazy stuff. That's all I can say is you spend enough time
Man.
going through people's homes,
Yeah.
and you see some pretty interesting stuff. So for somebody that's out there listening to this, that's in the residential world, that thinks they may want to get into commercial deals or get into multifamily, I would not dissuade them from doing so, but just know that it's a totally different rhythm. One of the things that really is in the SMI DNA is that we broker both in residential and commercial. And so our brokers come in, they may be on one plan or another, but they're able to cross over
Sure.
and broker in both asset types. And we feel that a real estate deal is a real estate deal. There's actually, I'll be honest, a residential deal is a lot harder than a commercial deal. There's a lot more oversight from the government. There's a lot more regulation. All your disclosures and the files. I mean, we can do a $50 million deal on a 20-page document. We don't need I don't know how big. I guess it's all digital now, but if you printed all that out,
Well, you still have to sign it. You have to
that's
wet
true.
sign it.
That's
So
true.
so they click sign that 100 or
That's
whatever, and then
true.
they get this big of a thing. I always make jokes about, you better have your, hopefully you've been doing your hand exercises,
Yeah.
because you're
Yeah.
signing all the same stuff that you signed initially too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
finding and winning the deals and holding them together. It takes a little more skill, a little more knowledge of what you're doing, but just purely from a paperwork standpoint and a knowledge of what you have to do, you shouldn't really be too scared about commercial deals. It's just bringing a buyer and a seller together like any other
Yeah.
transaction.
Yeah. So early on, so you said you just had a great mentor. what did he position you to do? Like, what did he give you lists? Did he, I mean, like, where did you angle yourself, and were you making phone calls? Like, what was your kind of bread and butter of drumming up business?
Yeah, that's good. So my mentor was a little different because he actually wanted me to be his exit partner. He wanted to come in and teach me real estate. He didn't want a broker anymore. So he wanted to just be my principal broker. He connected his desk to mine and we spent 4 years together.
Wow.
And we actually, when he sat me down, he said, uh, I'll teach you real estate, but I'm not going to do it unless you're going to be an investor. And I said, well, actually, he said landlord. And I'm like, landlord? I don't want to be a landlord.
Yeah.
He's like, not a landlord. Like you can hire property management and stuff. You don't actually have to go out and do that part of it, but you have to be willing to be an investor. And my question back to him was, can we skip the broker part and go to the investor part? He said, for me, he said, no. He said, I needed to learn how to put a deal together, how to find a deal, how to underwrite a deal, know what a deal was worth. And so he wanted me to cut my teeth on brokerage. So from the first day I sat at that desk, I was out looking for deals. I was like,
Yeah.
what about this one? What about this one?
Yeah.
What about this one? And he was super conservative, still is to this day. And it took about 3 years and we finally found a deal that he was comfortable doing and we bought it together. So we owned some doors together. We bought a few projects together. But first he wanted me to go out. So you're talking about how do I go find people? How do I win this business? In my case, he sort of turned over his book of business or whatever you want to call it, introduced me to a couple of people, and I just hit the phones and just started calling people. Now, this is, if you think back to 2011, 2012,
Yeah.
it was probably about like what it is right now.
Sure.
You call somebody and go, hey, do you want to sell? And it's like, why would I do
You got to have a
that?
pretty stinking good pitch, right?
Well,
Or,
yeah, I mean, in today's world, unless you have a loan coming due, you're probably not going to sell. Or unless you find an up leg or you find another deal that you want to do. So there's got to be a pretty good reason for wanting to trade out of deals today. But in that time, I didn't know any better. I knew that we were coming out of a downturn. I knew that it was going to eventually come back, and this is what I wanted to do. And I wasn't dipping my toe in. I was in it for the long game. And so I'm very much a relational broker. I'm not a transactional broker.
yeah.
And by that, I mean, if, I see some guys sit down and they hit the phones and it's like, we got to call 20 people a day. We got to, 150 a week or whatever that number is. And I think for me anyway, I hate cold calling. I don't enjoy it. I hate rejection. I hate somebody hanging up the phone on me.
Easy.
When you're new, you don't really know what you're talking about, and you get a lot of people. I mean, and from the other side, I hate really being cold called most of the time. I might be nicer than the average person because I know what it's like to be on that side of the table.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this is what I've always taught my salespeople is you have to look at fear of loss and hope for gain in every transaction. And the reason why people don't like a salesperson or don't like a cold call is because you're trying to take something from them. They don't want to be hard sold. They don't want you to take their money or take their time, whatever it is, right? And so you have to flip that script and give them hope for gain. It can't be, you have to take away the fear of loss and give the hope for gain. So what I teach is that when you pick up the phone to call somebody, make sure you're adding value. Make sure you're calling them with something they actually want to hear about. I don't want you to pick up the phone and say, do you want to sell? Do you want to sell? Do you want to sell? Now, I have brokers, and there's a lot of brokers out there that are very successful in that model of just call as many people as you can until somebody says yes. For me, I pick up the phone, and the first person that's willing to talk to me on the phone, you better bet we're going to be on the phone for an hour and a half. And at the end of that conversation, we're going to be going to lunch, we're going to be going to coffee, and we're going to become friends.
Yeah.
And whether or not we do a deal or not, who cares? I don't care. But I know that I'm out. I live my life by 2 rules: make friends and have fun. And so I want to go out and I want to make friends. And quite honestly, I don't really want to do deals unless we're friends. Like I don't want to just go out and broker for strangers. I want, especially when you're as intimate as you are as a commercial broker, you're trying to build somebody's portfolio. You're trying to build their wealth. and even a residential broker, this is going to be the home they raise their kids in, the schools, the whole thing. It's very personal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like you should become friends with your clients. I think that's how it should go. If you do it that way, it takes a little bit longer to get things going, because I can't make 150 calls a week, right? There's not enough hours in the day to sit and talk on the phone. Now, many people would critique my style and say, well, you just wasted 90 minutes talking to somebody you're never going to do a deal with. Maybe. But then I've had people call me back 2-3 years later and say, hey, I've got a friend who's looking for this, and we had a great conversation a couple of years ago, and I want him to come to you.
Teed it up. Yeah.
It's like, if I'm going to spend 5 minutes, I might as well spend an hour, right? I mean, we might as well take the time to get to know each other and figure out what your goals are.
And that referral network is something that you create. And that's when you give this intangible value. And one incredible value you give is just a wealth of knowledge and information, a lot that you've gleaned off from your, your mentor originally, that you picked up, and now you can go and utilize that for the good to create wealth for others. And that's a beautiful thing. And that's what real estate is. And the essence of real estate, and what a broker should be doing, is creating wealth for and education, I should say, for whoever they're providing, whatever they're purchasing, whether it be a building or whether it be a house, right? It's a big asset, any of them, right? They all have, it's a big loan. Even if it was $100,000, that's a big loan.
You're borrowing a lot of money.
So so that's great. Yeah, and one of the biggest things that I like that you say is, everyone wants to hear you got something different that I have, or Gabe just has something different, right? And when an interviewer asked Michael Jordan what was his best skill, right, he said it was that I was coachable, and I was just eager to be a sponge and to learn and do all these different things. It wasn't my being able to dunk from the from the free throw line, or jump everyone, or whatever it was. He said it was that I was coachable and a sponge. And I think that's super synonymous with what we do. Is we got to be sponges, we got to educate ourselves, and we always got to be ever moving with the times. How can we improve, right?
Be mentored, find a mentor of some sort, and mentor others. It's a great way to learn more about what your own philosophies are, and to really cement those ideas into you that you've learned by teaching others. You get reminded, me sitting here with you, it's reminding me of things I've learned. Like, this is valuable to me. It's information that I'm revisiting, that I can use again. And everybody has sort of a different style and the way that they want to do things. So not everything works for everyone, but I would say, I've had multiple mentors over the years. I've had several in the car business, and now I've had multiple in real estate. The mentor that I had took me to a certain point, and when he was done, it was time for him to go do what he was going to do, and I moved on to a different mentor. And so I've always had a mentor, and I plan to always continue to have.
Absolutely. Mentors. Yeah, you gotta be poured into, and you got to pour out, right? So that's great. Okay, I want to hear some fun stories now. What are some of, I know how creative how creative the commercial market can be. I know that you might need a brother, cousin, and their, rich uncle, or whoever, you might need a village of people to go in. Sometimes you just have one investor. Sometimes you have, what are some of your funnest stories or biggest successes that you can look back at in recent past or in your career that you can talk about?
Well, so one of the people that I listen to a lot is Robert Kiyosaki, guy who wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Okay.
And there's a lot of little tidbits of information you can get from that guy. Really, really a brilliant teacher, especially in the real estate space. And one of his catchphrases is that if you're using your own money to buy real estate, you're being lazy. And so real estate is less about buying buildings and really more about borrowing money.
Sure.
And so in the commercial game, the goal is to borrow as much money as possible. And I know that sounds counterintuitive to a lot of people,
right?
Because we've been sort of trained to think that debt is bad. And the reality is there's good debt and there's bad debt. And the debt that most people have is bad. Credit cards, car loans, even a home loan, Robert Kiyosaki would say, is bad debt, probably because the home is not necessarily an asset.
A depreciating asset is what a lot of
Yeah,
people are
I
saying.
mean, in a home, in my opinion, I mean, it's still, it shows up on your balance sheet. It typically goes up over time, but it's not providing any cash flow, right? And you can't depreciate it. You can write off the interest on your loan, but you
Right.
can't depreciate the
Oh yeah, I
asset.
was talking about the cars and stuff, but yeah,
Oh
homes
yeah,
will appreciate.
yeah.
But yeah,
The
the bad
car,
debt is that
the car is the
any
worst. Yeah,
depreciating
yeah.
asset
That
is
thing, you drive it
bad
off
debt,
the
right?
lot, and that's a bad deal. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're gonna lose a lot of money. It's, yeah, you don't buy a car to make money, that's for sure. But in real estate, I think that my favorite, there's several different ways that you can use other people's money to buy real estate. One way that lenders like yourself hate to hear is that sellers could finance the deal themselves. So you
Yeah.
can take banks out of the equation altogether. Some sellers like to do that. You can use sellers to carry down payments, or they might be in second position. You can bring in other investors' money and they can partner with you. So sometimes you're just bringing in a couple of buddies and you're doing a deal. Sometimes you're actually syndicating and you're going out and raising capital from investors and putting deals together. So I guess for me, have you ever read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill? Okay. Don't read another word of anything until you read that book. Okay. Super, super important book. And Rich Dad, Poor Dad, if you haven't read that. Think and Grow Rich. Napoleon Hill, he set out, this is many years ago that he wrote this book, but he set out and he interviewed, like, I think it was like 1,500 wealthy people. And he spent years writing this book. And he was trying to sort of find a common thread amongst wealthy people. And he wrote this book, and it's the weirdest book you'll ever read. You'll feel like it's brainwashing you. Everybody I know that's read this book got rich. Okay. So there you go. Let's just shut this podcast off. Go buy Think and Grow Rich. Yeah. It really is a mind game. It says it all right on the cover. You don't even have to buy the book. It says Think and Grow Rich. That's it. Mm-hmm. What is it? It's right here. Yeah. It's all right here. Okay. So we manifest things. Everything. This building wasn't here before somebody dreamed it up. Right. Like, I mean, we bring everything into our reality. Sure. And so when I read that, I thought, wow, that's cool. When I get into real estate, when I'm hitting the phones, I sort of had this ulterior motive. I'm not just going to call people and ask them for their business. I'm going to call them up. And even if they don't want to work with me, I'm going to ask them how they did it. Like you're asking me how I did it. Right. Sure. And so I thought, this is brilliant. Like, I'm going to talk to all these rich people and they're going to tell me how to get rich. Right. And so that might have been one thing that kept them on the phone longer, is because people are a little more excited to tell you how they built their wealth. Sure. Than they are to go, oh, it's another broker that wants to sell my building. Like, why would I sell it? Market's down a little bit, cash flow's fine, I don't want to sell it. Like, but if you call them up and go like, hey, how'd you buy this building? Like, did you have partners? Did you raise capital? Did you have to sell something to go into it? And you start going down that road, and you're truly genuinely interested in how to go do what they want to do. Chances are they're going to stay on the phone with you and tell you how they did it. Like, most successful people will not turn you away when you ask them how they did it, because they had somebody tell them how to do it. Right. They know how important that is. Yeah. Right. So anyway, to cut my story a little shorter, I thought I was going to be a genius, and I was going to find the common thread amongst all these investors and figure out which way is the best way. Mm-hmm. And the reality is everybody does it different, and they all get rich. Yeah. So the key is find your way and just do it. So what I have done in my portfolio, kind of, I guess my MO so far has been, I go out and I try every way. I'm just like, well, I don't know what the best way is, so I'm going to try every way. Right. Now, I started with no money. And so one of the most important things to learn is, like, most people just go, well, I can't buy a piece of real estate because I don't have the money. Well, that's a good reason. But if you knew, and this will sound bad, but I tell my brokers, they got to use their whole brain. You can't just think of a deal in terms of, I have to go save up a down payment, and I got to whittle down the best price, and I got to find the best loan. Like, this is just, if you can only see a deal from that angle, you will never own buildings. Yeah. If you can start to look, I do real estate more as an art form than as science. And so the guy who I call my current mentor now, who's one of my partners and one of my top clients, very successful guy. We've helped build his portfolio. We took him from several hundred units up to a couple thousand multifamily doors, you know, from about a $17 million net worth to about a $200 million net worth over the last 10 years. And I got a front row seat to that, and then got an opportunity to become partners with him. And I call him the Willy Wonka of real estate. You should have him on this show. You'll have way more fun than with me. He is a very special man, a very special person to me. His name's Paul Curley. A lot of people in this area know. He owns a lot of buildings in the area, and he talks a lot about the spiritual principles of real estate and getting your head right. I spend every Thursday afternoon with Paul, and I have for years. And we sit down, and to be honest, probably 90% of our time, we don't talk about real estate. Right. We talk about getting our heads straight, reminding ourselves why we're doing what we're doing, you know, that we were put here to do this, and that it's important. And we just sort of reinvigorate and re-energize each other, I guess. And so it's really important to have people like that in your life.
Yeah.
Because literally every week, by the end of Wednesday, I'll be like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this again?
Yeah.
And then I go meet with Paul on Thursday, and he's kind of doing the same thing. And then by the end of our conversation, we head back out, and we're like, oh yeah, that's why we do it. So you need somebody in your life, even if it's not a mentor, you need somebody that you can relate to, because as you become more and more successful, you're going to find that there's less and less people that relate to you, and less people that you really truly connect with.
Yeah.
And so to have somebody like that in your life is super important. But he taught me a couple of different methods, and really if you were to ask me my favorite thing about deals and deal structure, it would be leverage. So if we can buy a deal with no money, that's or get money back.
Right.
That's ideal. That's the way we'd love to do a deal. Now, that's not always going to work, and there's a couple of different ways that you can sort that out. But we want to try to use as little of our own money as possible when we're buying a deal. So I don't know how much you want me to talk about commercial investment strategies.
I like it. Yeah, go ahead. Some light on it.
Leverage is simple. It's just borrowing as much money as you can. The more, obviously high leverage is borrowing more, low leverage is borrowing less. Banks like you to have low leverage because that means they have less risk, right?
Sure.
And we like to have high leverage because that means we don't have to write as big of a check when we get to the closing table. But the math behind it's pretty simple. If you take $1 million property, and let's say we go pay cash for it, we pay $1 million for this building, we have to figure out a way to double the value of that property, make it worth $2 million in order to double our investment, to go from 1 million to 2 million. If I can go into that same deal with a bank loan, and let's say I put 30% down, I put 300,000 down. Now I'm using $700,000 worth of bank money. Now I only have to figure out how to make the building worth 1.3 million to double my money. Are you following?
Yeah, totally.
So now let's say I go to the seller and I say, what if I give you 10% down? Will you carry 90%? Now I only have to make the building worth 10% more. I have to make it worth 1.1, and I just doubled my money. Now let's say I go buy the building and I get the seller to just give me 100% seller financing. Now all I have to do is get the building to go up $1, and I've made an infinite return. So when you look at this on a spreadsheet and you model it, the reason why the markets are shifting due to debt, so rates go up, values go down. Why is that? Because you would think, well, there's some people out there with just cash that they'll buy something. Well, in the commercial world, they're not going to take that cash and park it in real estate if there are other investments that will provide them a higher return.
Sure.
The reason why people take money and they go do investments and they buy real estate is because they can get leverage. Now, as that interest rate goes up, what happens is, I don't know how deep you want me to go, but there's debt service coverage ratios. And so basically the bank wants to know that the net income of that building is going to cover the payment that you have to make.
Right.
And they have a ratio. They want to make sure, well, if you lose 20, 30, 40% of your income, they still want the payment to be made. They want to make sure they're made whole no matter what.
Classic
you don't have to make money.
Yeah,
the bank's got to get their money. Right. So as those interest rates go up, guess what happens? Your leverage goes down
Mm.
because the interest rate is one of your expenses, your
Yes.
debt payments.
Mhm.
So if my debt payment goes from 4% to 8%, I have twice the debt payment that I had before.
Mhm.
That's going to cut into my net income, right? So what ends up happening is, a year or two ago, we're doing 75, 80% loans. Today, you're lucky to get 60%.
Right.
So now what did I lose? I just lost the leverage. I
Mhm.
lost one of the main key components. And so big syndicators, there's a lot of cash sitting on the sidelines that want to do deals, but they still want the leverage. They want some leverage,
Mhm.
right? And so they're just waiting to see. They're waiting for those asset values to come down, or they're waiting for interest rates to come down, or they're waiting to where at least it looks like they're going to be able to make the return they want. And that's why things are kind of on pause and there's not as many deals going. So this is really a market. It's critical. It's really great for brokers that are in this market, because now you get to cut your teeth on how to do a deal in a non-traditional way,
Yep.
which is going to be something that makes you 10 times better than you would have been if you just ran through the 2021, 2022
Creativity.
years,
Yeah.
where you're just like, stack them up. I'm going to work 18-hour days and just make, just line up deals in my pipeline.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a beautiful thing. Just having creativity. I mean, like you said, if you have all these different types of factors, right? Where you weigh, okay, well, what if we structured this way, that way? Well, the same thing with financing, right? And, especially in a market like this, especially for a big, you know, chunk of money. So like owner carry and all these, very similar in the smaller form in investing, a DSCR or bank statements or 1099s, all these different things. But that creativity allows you to capture way, 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 way more and do more,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Because then you don't have to be as constricted with all those variables, right? On meeting in that DTI ratio. And how do you grab more, right? So
And when you're working for clients, think of how much better representation you're giving them from a lending or just a brokerage standpoint, where you're able to think outside of the box and find creative solutions to the problem that they have, so that you're not just bound to one idea that, like,
mm,
well, you just have to come up with a bigger down payment. Well, what if we tried a different loan type? What if we tried, whatever? And so there are so many different ways. It's really infinite. It's use your imagination. It's only limited by your imagination. Deal structure is just an art form. It's a way. I mean, look, I was on unemployment 10, 12 years ago, whatever it was, when I got into real estate. Now I guess it's 23. So about the end of 11 is when I started getting trained.
wow.
And so, go back in time, 11, 12 years, I'm on unemployment. I've got nothing. I mean, I think, I now am ending a 20-year career. I don't know where I'm going to go. And I get into real estate, and then, it's a tough market for a few years, but I broker some deals. I start figuring out how to do some deals, and I start buying some deals. Well, I didn't start buying deals till about 8 years ago. Today, I own 1,000 doors with my
Wow.
partners. So I had to piece together a lot of little partnerships and do some syndication stuff and other things in order to piece that together. It's not all 100% mine,
Yeah.
but to think of, you can literally come from nothing,
Yeah.
no money, and be able to piece together something like that in a short period of
Yeah, you
time.
kind of broke your mind into thinking, well, just because it's no for the bank, if you don't have 30% down, doesn't mean that it's no. It's
Well,
infinite, you can make something out of
we'll
this
go
if
find
you get
somebody to
good.
give you the 30%, right? I
Right.
mean, it's like, well, okay, I found a deal. I want this deal and the bank wants 30%. Okay.
There's a
Well,
partnership.
you could say, I don't have 30%, so I can't buy it. Or you could say, how do I go find that 30%?
Yeah.
Find a partner with 30%, find somebody to loan you, go ask mom, go do something,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
that a lot of people just stop the exercise right there
Yeah.
and just go, well, that's $1 million building. I'm never going to have 300 grand. I guess I'll go back to work now. Like, it just stops. You can't stop there.
Mhm.
You have to say, well, how would I if I were to get, it's another Kiyosaki thing. Don't say I can't afford it. Say, how can I afford it? You just
Yep.
have to change. This
Yeah.
is, again, remember, this is just your head. So your head says, instead of listening to that voice in your head that says you can't do it,
Yeah.
you have to overcome that. That's a Napoleon Hill thing. I keep quoting these two guys. Super important. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. If you never read another 2 books in your whole life, read those two
Yeah.
books. Napoleon Hill says one of his catchphrases is that you have to become the master of deflecting negative energy.
Mm.
And so everybody's going to tell you you can't do it.
Yeah.
Everybody, your mom's going to tell you you can't do it. And once you do it, guess what? They're not even going to believe you really did it. Or they're not going to be like, nobody's going to really understand or appreciate what you do. You have to be okay with that. You're not doing it for them.
Right.
Right. So if you were put on this earth to build wealth and be successful and have freedom, which is why I do it, I want to be able to do whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it. I want to live my life, and I don't want to be bound by, oops, I don't have enough money to do that. Right.
Yeah.
And so money is just a tool. It's also just the byproduct of doing a good job. Right. So I love helping people. That's really the reward for doing the job.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it comes to just my own personal finances, like, I mean, it would be great. The more money you make, the better. But at the end of the day, I think in our culture, being rich is sort of like something you kind of try to hide. It's almost something to be embarrassed about. Like people aren't into it anymore. Maybe you are secretly, but you don't want to, like, saying you're rich or trying to be rich or whatever.
Discretion.
Like,
yeah.
it's like, oh, you're just, you think you're way up here and you're better than everybody else, and you're an elitist, and you're disconnected from the rest of the world who's poor and all this other stuff. It's just a mindset. It literally, the difference between a poor person and a rich person is just their mind. That's it. So the only difference is that mindset. And so to have that thought process of, you know what, if I'm going to be rich, you could be a bad person. Money's kind of like alcohol. You add alcohol to like a guy who likes to be, in fights, and he's going to go fight people, right?
Yeah.
You add alcohol to somebody who's happy, and suddenly they're like 10 times happier.
Uh-huh.
Like money's kind of the same way.
Yeah.
Money just kind of like takes and exaggerates your personality. So if you're a bad person and you're out there listening to me and Aaron talk right now, just stay poor. Don't be rich. We don't want you to be rich. But if you're a good person, think of the things you can do. Think of taking care of your folks when they get to be elderly. Think of raising your kids in a different way than other people might be able to raise their kids. Think about being able to pick the school that they go to because you're not happy with the curriculum in your school or whatever.
Right.
Think about being able to take some time to go enjoy a month, overseas with your spouse. Think about giving back to all the wonderful charities that we have in our community. Think about, there's so many opportunities to do good, and everybody wants you to write that check when it comes time to, have the big luncheon downtown and say, like, we're doing these great things.
Sure.
They want all the rich people in that room.
Mm-hmm.
It's just when you walk out of that room, they don't want anybody to say, hey, I'm rich,
Yeah. But then everyone else is going to be.
I got to sneak in there with my checkbook and write the check and just sneak out.
Yeah.
And that's fine. You don't need to be flashy or anything like that. I think we need to take the sort of the negative stigma away from what it means. I think that I'm going to say one more book. I don't read a lot, to be honest with you. This is probably like the only 3 books I've ever read.
They've had a good effect on you, obviously.
I study them. Yeah, I'm kind of ADHD, if you can't tell.
Same.
So I study these. I study these things. The 7 Habits of highly effective people, I think, is what it's called. Stephen Covey. You've read this one. That is another. Why was I bringing that up? What were we talking about? I lost track. Read 7 Habits. So seven Habits is a great book, but Covey has a couple of things in there that I wanted to mention and I forgot what it is. So ask me the next question.
Yeah, I like it. So we'll got a couple more good questions to ask. Talk about, I love that you brought up, how the add money or add alcohol. Talk about how big of an effect I see you post, every year. It's your anniversary of, you don't drink anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So what type of effect did that have on your life? Obviously that takes a pretty big grip and control over you. And I know that you could probably talk a long time about that. So
I'm very open about my recovery, recovering drug addict, alcoholic, and sober for almost 20 years now. And that, honestly, like everything in my life comes from that. If actually tracing it all the way back to my mentor that you keep bringing up, I met him in the program. He was a friend of a friend, and
Wow.
um, none of this comes to me without sobriety. So I do a lot of I like to be around the people in the recovery community in this town and stuff.
Yeah.
I think that alcohol specifically just doesn't do anything positive for anybody.
Mhm.
I don't, even if you don't have a problem with it, I
Yeah.
just don't think it does any. I mean, I'm not telling everybody to go stop drinking, but certainly the way I did it isn't going to help anybody. I felt at 28 years old, I had hit a bottom where I felt like I was going to die. And just addicted to cocaine and meth. And I mean, I
Wow.
was like, I'm an obsessive personality type. And I think interestingly enough, I think that people with addictive personalities, I think it's kind of a superpower, to be honest. So,
Yeah.
for anyone listening that is struggling with addiction, I don't think it's something to really be ashamed of. I think it actually directed in the right way will give you something that kind of you can run circles around normal people, because you get sort of a one track mind. You're
Hyper
hooked on
focus.
something. You're
Yeah.
hyper focused. And so I don't even feel like I'm hyper focused, but I do feel like I run at a much higher speed than the average person.
Yeah.
And so I personally feel like ADHD, alcoholism, all of these things sort of get this. We look down on it. I didn't know that's what this podcast was going to be about. It's funny that we're talking about this. We're talking about don't. So be rich and be sober. No, it being being sober for me is number one. It's the most important thing I'll ever do in my life. It is the biggest success I will ever have. The people that I'm surrounded with, the people that have helped me get sober. There's another one right there for mentors.
Yeah.
I couldn't get sober by myself. I needed help, and I got that help. And so to be willing to say, okay, I don't know how to live life on life's terms, and I need help, and to surrender your life over to a power greater than yourself,
Yeah.
and to give up on something. I mean, some people think like, oh, alcohol sort of did some bad things in your life and you stop drinking and things sort of get better. When you're an alcoholic, that's not really the way this goes. Like, I decided I wanted to stop drinking when I was 24, and I
Mm-hmm.
was 28. I was still the youngest guy in the room when I walked in and wanted to get sober at 28 years old.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people were doing that, but the way I was drinking and using, I was just going to be a statistic. And today, with all the things going around, it wouldn't take me more than a couple hours and I'd be dead, because it's a dangerous world out there to be playing around
Oh yeah. Yeah.
with drugs these days. So it just doesn't do anything positive. And I'm very blessed. I feel like I was not going to live to be 30 years old. I was convinced in my heart of hearts that I would not make it to 30. And so to be sitting here with you today, I'm almost 48 years old. I live a life beyond my wildest imagination. I,
What a story, man.
have wonderful friends, a wonderful wife, kids, grandkids, businesses, investments, money. I mean,
You even got a grandkid named Cash,
I
man.
have a
Come on,
grandkid, Cash. Yeah, he'll be 7 next week on
Yeah.
Halloween. Yeah, Cash Money, we call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a
I love it.
stud.
Oh, what a beautiful story. I mean, I didn't even know some of the stuff, but I think it just shows that, you know what, there is there. I like telling the story of you because you're so relatable, right? And the essence of you and your success and whatnot is in those stories and that DNA and that what all of those things helped create you, right? And being at the car dealership and learning how to, I mean, there's so many different factors, but it also takes a very pivotal thing to really, project you in a different, trajectory. So
You've got to be willing to reinvent yourself,
yeah.
and constantly be growing. At some point, you may find yourself just going, I am not at the stage of life, or I'm not even at any point in life that I ever wanted to be in. I need to be going in a different direction. And it's difficult. It's difficult just to stop and just like start life all over again,
Yeah.
but it's possible. I'm living proof that anybody can do this. I mean, I was just a hopeless drunk, and so to be able to be sober, God willing, as long as I have been, and to put together some success is, I hope it inspires somebody else to consider, something that they might have thought was hopeless, that they might find hope, that for sure there definitely is strength. It might not be within you.
Mm.
You might not have the strength in you. You might need it from other people. You might
Wow.
need it from a higher power. And
I
I would suggest you need both.
I agree. I agree. Okay, let's cover a couple more things. Get this wrapped up. Don't want to keep you for too long, but let's talk a little bit about okay, if I'm a guy that's saved money, right? I have a 401k. I got a little goose egg. How would you tell me to get involved in investing? Where would you point me first? Where would you have me? Would you just meet with you? Would you meet with, where would I start?
It's a good question. Well, first off, I feel like um, the traditional kind of way that we've been taught to retire, to go to school, get a job, work hard, 401k, buy a house, pay the house off.
Sure.
Um, that used to be a thing that worked, maybe for our parents or grandparents. It doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
Real estate is the greatest wealth building tool in the history of man. If you're not buying real estate, you got to do everything you can to figure out how to buy real estate. I'm telling you, you have to buy real estate. I don't care if it's one building, you have to own real estate.
Yeah.
It's super important. So where do you start? Having some money is not a bad plan, because even if you're able to buy something with no money, the building's still probably going to cost you some money. So having some money or some access to money is not a bad idea. For me, I to this day don't own a single piece of real estate without partners. And so what I did is I found my way into deals with folks that I trusted, that knew more about it than I did, that brought a lot more to the table probably than I did. They brought more, they had more money, they had more experience.
Mm.
And I sort of rode their coattails, right?
Yeah.
And I was too scared to get into these things by myself. And so I've never gone out and bought a building by myself. For me, it was partners. Not everybody's wired that way. Not everybody wants the partnership. They want to do it themselves, and that's okay. There's no harm in that. As a matter of fact, my mentor, Paul, that I talked about earlier, he was just running solo for many years. He had some bad experiences with partners, decided he didn't want to go that road. He still built something phenomenal. But until him and I built a close relationship, he didn't have any other partners. And so, I earned my way into that partnership by helping him create a serious amount of wealth.
Yeah.
And so I would say, first, invest in yourself. It sounds cliche, but you really need to start studying. You need to start watching videos. All the information's there. Read the books.
Yeah.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich, 7 Habits. Read those books.
Yeah.
There's other ones, but those are some 3 really great books to start with. And don't just read them, like study them, highlight them, talk about them, set up a book club with your 2 best friends and get together once a week and talk about these books. I'm telling you, for like $40-$50, you got all the answers.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just stuff I learned from reading books and talking to people. It's all right there. It's there.
Yeah.
So, partners is one way. Investor meetups is a really cool way. So SMI sponsors an event called the SRE that's done on the first Wednesday of every month. And Salem, it's at the Chicha restaurant out at the 45th Parallel building on Hyacinth.
Yeah.
That's at 5:30 p.m. on the first Wednesday every month. We had about 125 people come to that.
I saw that. That looked great.
This month. And so come out first Wednesday, meet other investors. What's really cool is, I don't know if this is new or if it's always happened, but there tends to be kind of a subculture and a community of people who are investing or want to invest. And they're all very open to helping each other.
Yeah.
Like they're sharing ideas and they're talking about the last deal they did and how, and it's really cool to see. Especially I jazzed. I've got a couple of guys I mentor that are partners of mine now
Yeah.
that are in their 20s,
Killing it.
and they're doing really, really great. And I just see the way they go out and give that information to other people. And now there are people buying real estate that would have never otherwise maybe known how or whatever to get into it.
That's
So
a huge thing, is the education, you know?
yeah, and you got to have a broker. You've got to have maybe a mentor. You've got to have maybe a partner
Yeah.
that, you've got to get introduced to some people. You need to know how to get a loan. You need to know how to underwrite a deal. You need to know how to look for a deal, how to win a deal. There's a lot of little facets to it.
For sure.
At the end of the day, you just got to get in. You just got to do a deal. I'll tell you, just a deal story. One of my favorite deals is my first deal, because it took me 3 years to find a deal that my conservative partner was willing to do with me. It was a $100,000 duplex in Albany, former meth lab fitting for me. I never had a meth lab before. It had been certified to be habitable again. And it was totally uninhabitable. Like, roof was I mean, you walked into the bedroom and there was a skylight that wasn't supposed to be there, like 10 by 10. It was raining on the inside of the unit. It was bad, but 100 grand. And we bought it, and I went to another friend of mine and I said, this thing's going to take some work, but we want to borrow some money to do it. He said, hey, I'd love to make 10% on my money. So I borrowed $125,000 from a friend, 10% interest, went and bought this duplex. And I had 25 grand left to go fix it up. That wasn't enough. It ended up taking more to fix it. We had to put a little bit of money into it, but we got that thing rented up. It took longer than I wanted it to.
Yeah.
It didn't, it was negative cash flow for a while. And like the first 6 months of my investment career, I was like,
licking your wounds.
I'm like, this sucks. I just want to go broker a deal and get a big commission. I don't want to mess with this. Then I saw that we built some equity, and it started to cash flow, and it started to write me checks. And I thought, okay, well, I don't hate that thing so much anymore. I kind of like it. And we ended up picking up a couple more, and we only had that building for a couple of years, and we ended up selling it and trading it into an 11-unit complex.
Right.
Now, if you keep doing that, you buy some trading stock and you just roll it.
Up.
I wouldn't necessarily have to go buy any other buildings. I could just take that, and every couple of years turn the 11 into 15 or 20, turn the 20 into 30 or 40.
And if they're all investments, you can 1031 them, right? So
yeah, you just do a 1031 exchange, you roll your basis into the next one, and you go find the next value add property. Now, if you're buying value add, you're going to be dumping some cash. So you got to figure out how to come up. I call it now money and tomorrow money.
Right.
So my buildings are my tomorrow money, and my business is my today money.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't have that. They don't have the business. Maybe you're brokering, maybe you're doing loans, maybe you're doing something, or you have a good job. You got to have a way to make some money now to live and to be able to support your lifestyle, and to be able to support these buildings and things. But ultimately, when you're earning your income, it's taxable, and it does not have the benefits of owning real estate. Real estate is wealth, right? We're not looking, most people, I don't think most people grasp this concept. Having cash and having wealth are two different things.
Yeah.
So when I say a guy is worth 200 million, most people would say, well, that's amazing. I want to be worth 200 million.
I want to have 200 million in the bank. Yeah.
It's not 200 in the bank.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be great to have 200 in
his
the
net
bank.
worth.
His net worth
is 200
because he has assets, and he borrowed money. He borrowed $500 million to be able to get to that kind of a net worth. Doesn't mean he's sitting on a lot of cash. Like, you just think in your mind, oh, the things I would buy, go buy a jet and a yacht or do whatever. Like, it sounds crazy, but the reality is that's not, it's not what it is. You've built wealth, and you have wealth that you can tap into, but you're only going to be able to tap that if you sell or refi. You're going to have to extract your equity back out of a building. So most people, I think, in their mind, if I'm reading this correctly, is they think, I'm not too worried about tomorrow. I'm not too worried about building a future. I'm not too worried about future freedom, retirement, older me. When I was younger, I thought retirement, that sounds stupid. Why would I? That just means I'm old. I don't want to retire. Well, I mean, who says you got to be old? You can retire when you're 40 years old, right? I mean, that might be kind of cool. So, I mean, when you look at it from that angle, what most people think is, I just don't have enough money right now, and I want to have more money. And that's cool. Like, go get another job, or go find a side hustle, or go figure out a way to make more money, get a raise, get a promotion, go work a new job, go start a business, do whatever you got to do to get your now money straight.
Yeah.
But you're not building any wealth. It's not generational wealth. You're not building any sort of a downline. You're not building any sort of freedom for yourself. So I don't know. I think that to get out of the mindset, maybe it's instant gratification. Get out of the mindset that I got to make it all right now, and start have today taken care of, but start thinking about tomorrow and what I got to do to build. And owning a piece of real estate is an easy way to do it, because you just buy it, you get it to cash flow a little bit. And if you want, just sit on it and let your tenants pay it off over the next 25 or 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And now you own a building free and clear.
Right.
You have the cash flow.
Right.
Now, if you get the bug, you may go buy another one, or you might sell that one and trade into one, but at least get into your first deal. It's the hardest deal.
Mm-hmm.
Your first million's the hardest to make. Your first deal is the hardest one to do. But once you do them, you're gonna be off to the races, and you'll make mistakes, and you'll lose money, and might have bad partnerships, and you might have bad experiences. But guess what? Every single one of those things will make you better at the next deal.
And there's so much value to have the knowledge and be able to do it as well. Like the fact that you are helping people buy apartment complexes and buildings and whatever, and you're also an owner of 1,000 units and whatnot. That's credibility. That's leverage. So that's pretty awesome. And I think one of the biggest takeaways that I'm getting from you is, one, get yourself right. Get your and perpetually do that every week.
Get your head right.
Every week you need to
get your health right.
Right.
My wife would tell you your health is your wealth.
Yeah.
You don't have anything. If you feel like crap, I'll give you $100 million right now and put you in a hospital bed, and you'll go, I don't want the $100 million.
Exactly.
I want to feel better.
Yeah. So get your health right. And then it takes partners. It takes collaboration. It takes a village to make these things happen. And I think that's a beautiful thing. That, I mean, I don't have the money, but I could figure out a way to get it right. And if that property pencils, if you have the dynamics and the variables that all need to be there, you can buy that property, and it makes sense, and you're paying your investors back, and so on and so forth. So I think that's kind of the essence of what you're saying is learn it, understand it, get yourself right, and then jump in. I think
there's more money than you can imagine. The world is awash in money. People come from a scarcity mindset. They think there's a lack, and there's not. There's tons of money. If you can find a deal that generates a nice return, there are people lined up around the block that are going to want to give you money for that deal.
The amount of equity in the world right now is in the United States alone is just huge. Crazy. No one's tapping. A lot of people aren't tapping into it, right? So that's
sitting on it.
Yep.
Well, how would you take a second?
You
sell?
Could. Absolutely.
You're 2.5% interest rate. Why would you?
Right. Exactly. But if you find something that pencils and you go in with partners, you each put 30,000 on a second, why not?
Just go pledge your house for your duplex you're buying. Just say, hey, I'll give you a second on my house, cross collateralize.
Yeah.
You guys do cross collateralized loans?
No. Do we? Yeah.
Maybe.
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
I've done it before.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess now that's homework for me now.
Then you don't even have to take out a second.
Yeah.
Just go say, hey, I'll pledge my house as part of the collateral. You let me go into this deal. I want to put, minimal down payment or whatever.
Wow.
Why not use it for that way if you're not going to take it out anyway?
And that's it, is leverage. How do you figure out a way to leverage what you have to get more, and then to hold on to that and make sure that, cash flows, or get that to right place, and then go do it again.
Well, a duplex is what, 400 grand, 500 grand a day, a lot. And you have to put 25% down. Now they're coming out with the FHA thing where you can do 5% down. There's a way, if you're not in your first deal, when they change that rule in November.
Yeah. FHA is 3.5, and then conventional is going to 5.
Conventional is going to 5. Yeah. So on 1 to 4 unit.
Yes.
So there you go. So this is, I've told 1,000 people this, maybe 2 people have listened to me. So for those of you that are out there that are paying attention, this rule where you can put 5% down and buy a 4-plex, go do it. right now. Literally, go get approved for it right now, because smallplex prices are going to go through the roof when everyone figures this thing out. Go find your smallplex today, start shopping with a broker today, and figure out a way how you're going to come up with 5%. You got to say that you're going to live in one of the units or live in one of the units for a year, and utilize that to get your first investment property. I mean, what better way to start your portfolio than with 5% down?
That is, everyone wants to know, how do I be a real estate investor? And that is one of the, I mean, in the FHA with 3.5% down. I mean, but does does the FHA 3.5%, that you have to make what the mortgage is conventional going to be the same thing?
Well, they'll count the some of the income towards some of the rent towards the income.
Right. Yeah. I guess I haven't even looked. I'll send everyone this link to it to confirm, because if you don't have to make sure that I'm sure that the rents will, though, if it's a 4 unit. I mean, even if
rents will cover it.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
But on your conventional, this new thing, 5% for 1 to 4 unit. I don't know if you can do multiple loans that way, or if it's only one. You do more than one.
Yeah. Yeah, you can.
So there you go. You do 1 fourplex every year for the next 5 years. You've got 20 doors. As you come out of their 5th year, you start trading each one of those fourplexes and into an 8plex. You guys go do the math on it. It doesn't take a whole lot to build this portfolio and start building this up. I mean, that right there, I don't know how long that'll be available, but for however long it's available, go buy as many of those as you possibly can.
Yeah. Yeah, and you don't have to have that much cash. Like, you don't have to show that you're making that much money, because the property's making money.
Yeah, you got rents coming in.
Right.
So they're going to count 3.
Just have good credit.
Fourplex, you got 3 rents coming in already. You're just counting 1. Have decent credit, go do 5% down. So now you're buying a fourplex. What's a fourplex going to cost you? $800 to $1 million or something like that.
Yep.
So $1 million, you got to come up with $50K.
Yep.
Do it.
Yeah.
Go find 50 grand and buy a fourplex. Do it now.
Yeah, right. Well, awesome. Well, hey, Gabe, I appreciate you. Man, I feel like we could keep going on this.
Thanks for having me on. We'll do it again. We only made it through like 3 of your 20 questions.
And I asked some different questions, but I wanted to really get into what you're made of and what you're, what built you. And I think that went a much more fun route on, who you are and what you are. And I think we still got a lot of cool stuff to cover. So I appreciate you walking through.
Appreciate you having me on.
We'll maybe do it again soon. We're talking to one of the top producers in Willamette Valley. We gotta glean some more knowledge off you, Bob. And anyways, go buy some multifamilies. That's exactly what he's saying.
Buy any real estate. I don't care what kind of real estate. Go buy real estate. That's all I'm saying. Buy real estate.
Yeah. All right, brother.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.